So the CEO of Microsoft, a funny little fella named Satya Nadella, he is a wicked smart and very capable businessman, not just because he looks like an elf, but also just because he is extremely sharp. I mean, you don't run a multi-trillion-dollar company unless you are pretty sharp. I mean, just imagine how good you have to be for shareholders to entrust you with a ship that big. You know, that's pretty insane. But he was recently on an interview panel, and he talked about Xbox and their ad strategy and everything else that they're doing. And, you know, he's just said it very, very plainly what their strategy is. And I'll just let him say it for himself.
And the love for gaming, if I think about it, right, we chose the secular growth category in entertainment, which we think is gaming, and said, let's double down on it. And it's been a passion for Microsoft ever since. In fact, I think Flight Simulator launched before Windows or Office even. And so it's like one of the longest franchises in this company. And so we said, let's take that joy of gaming everywhere. And that's why even these ads with Xbox now, where we are redefining what it means to be an Xbox fan, it's about being able to enjoy Xbox on all your devices. So our strategy with Activision content now is in full force. We feel fantastic about the progress we've made. And more importantly, I think on long term, as a company, we can bring the best of AI innovation, cloud innovation, console innovation, PC innovation to build the best games that can be enjoyed by gamers everywhere.
He said growth, which is like a trigger word. I mean, immediately when you hear that, it's like, oh, that's why. Gaming is a massively growing industry. At least it has been historically for the last handful of years. Really the last like 10, 20 years. It's been growing like crazy, and it continues to do so. Though at last year or two it's been slowed, but it's probably more like, you know, when the chart's going, I'm trying to do it at the right angle, when the chart's going up like crazy, there will be a couple years where it maybe plateaus a little and then it keeps going up, or maybe even some years where it dips a little and then it keeps going up. That's normal. I think that's where we're at right now, which is why we've seen so many layoffs and stuff like that. But gaming is a huge opportunity in the tech space, and it's an opportunity that like Apple, besides the App Store, has like no interest in. They've tried to do some stuff where they're like, oh, look, you can play AC Mirage on your iPad. That's about the extent of what they've done, you know, when it comes to trying to break into the gaming market. So Apple, which is one of their primary competitors in the tech space, they are just like totally MIA. Google tried to do some stuff when it came to, crap, what did they call it? What was their freaking cloud gaming thing called? Stadia. They tried to do with Stadia for a little bit, and that went nowhere. And Amazon, they have their cloud gaming thing as well that nobody can ever remember the name of. I honestly don't know a single person who's ever used it. So like there's just not a lot of competition in the gaming space. Luna, that's it. Thank you guys. There's just not a lot of competition there. And so Satya, being a very capable businessman, was like, hey, this is a huge opportunity. We come in there with buckets of cash. We expand our Xbox platform. We build it out. We become one of the biggest distributors of gaming software in the world pretty much overnight. Easy peasy, easy money. And that's what he's doing. Really not that complicated. What's been interesting is that people really they seem to struggle with the idea that Microsoft has changed how they view the games industry and their role and place in it. For a long time, basically 20 years, it was PlayStation versus Xbox. PC is sort of its own thing. Nintendo is sort of its own thing, but fundamentally it's PlayStation versus Xbox, and it's the console war through and through. And that's how it was for about 20 years. Nowadays, that's not how Xbox views it. Maybe PlayStation views it that way. Xbox doesn't. Xbox is like, well, yeah, we've been losing that fight, so why would we keep going back into the cage when we keep getting the crap beat out of us? Let's make our own game and do our own thing. And that's what they're doing. They're going to start trying to focus on distributing software first and foremost, using things like Game Pass to guarantee consistent revenues instead of relying on big spikes intermittently, which are very high risk, high reward. It just makes more sense for Xbox and for Microsoft to do it that way, especially because Microsoft, that's how they handle the rest of their business. Microsoft is not like a multi-trillion-dollar company because they sell the best laptops or because they sell the best desktops or tablets or whatever. They are a multi-trillion-dollar company because they distribute software. And they distribute it all over the world, both on individual levels with PCs and industrial, like commercial levels with servers and all the software that they run for that. Everything is run through those Microsoft platforms. And that's why they're so big. That's because they distribute software. That's where they make their money. That's what they're good at. And that's what they're doing with Xbox. So their whole approach is to now stop fighting a game that they have struggled to make any ground in for years and years and years, and kind of move the goalpost. So instead of trying to win the fight over which company has the larger percentage of consoles on the market and console sales, they're now moving it and they're like, okay, well, let's now compete based on who has the most revenue in gaming, who has the most profitability in gaming with microtransactions and other things, who is the most capable distributor of software, regardless of platform. And that is a game that Microsoft/Xbox, I think, absolutely can start winning very easily. Granted, when you start with $70 billion, $77 billion if you count ZeniMax, like, you'd better make some progress. You would hope. But that's where they're at, is they came in there, they spent a crap ton of money, and now they are seeing significant returns on that investment already. But it is fundamentally a different game than they used to play 5-10 years ago. And that's something where I think Xbox, like the Xbot crowd, the hardcore fans that make Xbox part of their identity, those people are frustrated and thoroughly confused because they're like, no, Xbox is supposed to like have exclusives now and finally screw over PlayStation and have these exclusives that only we get to play, because for so many years PlayStation had exclusives we couldn't play. Now we have those, but you're sending them over to PlayStation anyways. And those people are frustrated. On PlayStation, they're like, oh, what losers. They have to come over here and sell their games to us anyways. And they're looking at it foundationally through the wrong lens. Microsoft is trying something different, and it's a game I think they can win, but it's not the game that they've played before, and it's not the game that PlayStation's playing or anybody else is playing. But it is a game that I think will see them gain a lot of financial stability over the next few years in the gaming sector, especially if Game Pass continues to grow. Apparently it is in the shadow of Black Ops 6. Apparently that did some crazy numbers for them. But it's continuing to be claimed by other people like Jez Corden through Windows Central that Xbox won't have exclusives going forward. Specifically, what he said was, quote, Xbox won't have exclusives going forward. Everything is a timed exclusive at most. If some games are exclusive, though, it's going to be incidental at best. The case-by-case argument is by and large going to be multi-plat timed and with maybe a few very few outliers. And responding to a user who said they didn't believe that Xbox's upcoming Fable game could come to PlayStation, Corden wrote, that game was monstrously expensive. It might not be day one, multi-platform day one, but it'll come with the current plan in place, IMO. And this is something that, I mean, the writing is on the wall, like you can see in this picture of Indiana Jones. It's on the wall. You cannot spend $200-300 million on a game in 2024 and make that back with a console exclusive. It just doesn't really work that way anymore. There are a few rare exceptions, like if you had a big freaking, exclusive for the PS5, you could do that. If you are kind of a separate group like Nintendo and you have Mario Kart 9, yeah, that can work because those are literal console sellers. But those games are also going to sell 25-30 million copies. I mean, how many copies did Smash Bros sell? This one says Smash Ultimate, as of a year ago, has sold over 31 million copies. If you sell 31 million copies, yeah, you can spend as much money on it as you want. Then you're okay. Then you get a pass. But even games like God of War Ragnarok, for example, that was a huge exclusive that was it was cross-generational. It also launched on PS4 because they needed more than just the one little platform of PlayStation 5, in order to get enough people to potentially buy it to break even. You still will see some console exclusives, but even what you're seeing now is PlayStation very openly bringing those exclusives to PC later because it's money on the table. Like, I don't think PlayStation's going to be bringing their games to Xbox. I just don't think that's going to be anything they're that interested in. But I do think you'll see it come to PC, and you will see them continue doing that because it's just games are so freaking expensive in the modern day. You need to be able to do that. I mean, again, to put it in perspective, The Witcher 3, that game cost $81 million to make. The budget was apparently $32 million plus $35 million in marketing, and then there was some overspend in various spots as well. But that's what we're talking about, okay? To make that game today is probably $200 to $400 million. Okay? So, yeah, and that's only 3.5 years that they technically spent working on it. So when we say the industry is different today, it is. It just is. It's fundamentally different. And there's no magic shortcuts. There's no other solution than you either make the game in less time so it'll be smaller. You pay your developers less or have less of them, but that's not going to help with quality. Or your game's just going to be expensive to make and you just need to sell more copies and maybe more DLC or, you know, premium upgrades for pre-orders or ultimate editions or whatever. You just have to get more money out of more gamers to pay for it. It's really not that much more complicated than that. And for something like Xbox games, they have Game Pass, and they're hoping a lot of people sign up for Game Pass to play these games when they launch and that they keep their subscription. But then on the flip side, they hope that when it comes to PlayStation, people buy it for the full price anyways, and they just do it that way. And then they get the best of both worlds. They get the PlayStation gamers who are used to paying full price for games, and then they get the Xbox gamers who are used to subscriptions to get into games. And then PC gamers will basically have the choice of choosing which one they want. They can buy the game through Steam or the Xbox store for full price and just own it, or they can go and sign up for Game Pass on PC and play it that way. It's fundamentally just meeting players where they are with the expectations that they have for purchasing a game or acquiring it, and then just calling it good. Just being everywhere for everybody at the same time and distributing it that way. And I don't think it's a bad option. 3 years is kind of fast. Yeah, I mean, it probably could have been pumped out in like 6 months. Or they probably needed an extra 6 months because it was pretty buggy at launch. But yeah, I mean, games used to be pumped out pretty quick. Or executives take less money. I mean, the problem is executives are compensated with stock options that pay out over scheduled periods of time. It's not like they're receiving cash payouts that are in the millions and millions of dollars. That's why every time you hear like an executive pay plan discussed, it'll say they received a compensation package worth $30 million or $10 million or whatever it is. That does not mean they got a deposit to their bank account of $10 million. So it's not the same as like, oh, they got a check for that, or that was part of the dev process. That's not how those payouts work. It's a fundamentally different way of being paid than 99.9% of people on planet Earth. But I don't know how it works. I'm dumb. No, you're fine. Like I said, 99.9% of people on Earth don't get paid that way, so they just don't know. But when people hear like Elon Musk is now worth, like I saw that one video, and they had the like tally. Oh yeah, here it is. So they have like this guy standing next to him, and they're showing the amount of money that his net worth is increasing by in this period of time to show how ridiculously wealthy he is. That this guy, as he stands there with his salary, it's basically he made 25 cents in that period of time. He's already made 8,500, 9,000, 9,500, 10,000. He's making crazy amounts of money. So people, when they see this type of thing, which I don't personally know if this is calculated correctly, but for demonstration purposes, it kind of gets the job done. But when people see this, they assume that like, oh, so at the end of the day or at the end of the month or in 2 weeks, Jeff is going to get a deposit to his bank account for that amount. That's not what that means. What Jeff has is Jeff owns like 13% of Amazon or something like that. And so because of that, as the stock price increases, his net worth increases. But when the stock price drops, his net worth decreases. It's like when Mark Zuckerberg, he owns Meta, of course, or what used to be Facebook. And there was a really, really bad day for Meta like 3, maybe 4 years ago, where they lost, like he lost something insane, like 60, 70 billion of net worth in a day, like, or in a week or something. He lost tens upon tens of billions of dollars of net worth in a day. That didn't mean his bank account decreased at all. It just meant the thing he had was worth less. Like if that statue over there, if you told me that's worth $5,000, cool. If tomorrow you say now it's only worth 3,000, it didn't change me. Like my life hasn't changed at all. My accounts haven't changed. You just told me that thing I have is worth less. That's how these executives are compensated, is they own things that are worth a certain amount of money, and they can take loans out against them. They can do things like that, or sell the shares, of course, but it's not like they're just receiving deposits. It's not that simple. So, you know, some people will just say, oh, well, in order to make these games more affordable or lower the budgets, just pay the executives less. And in principle, yeah, that's true. But also the executives are being compensated based on stock options for the company's performance. So like the budget isn't factoring in a $10 million payment to the executive. That's just not how it works. The budget is independent of that. And the budget is a function of cash flows. The executive's compensation is a function of the stock's performance, the company's performance more broadly. So they're siloed. They're in different areas. They're different things.